Milling Through History presents Vikings. When the History Channel premiered its television program Vikings, people were amazed at its sudden overnight success. How could it be that a program dealing with this topic was so popular? Considering at the time that the History Channel was more in tune with doing things that were reality programs and less on actual documentaries, it seems no real surprise that a topic which few people actually understood would become extremely popular because it was different. And yet, the success of the Vikings television program has gone ahead and spawned many changes to history, as the History Channel has gone ahead and taken less from the historical narrative and more from convenient plot lines in order to try to keep ratings high and people interested. And so today we look at the Viking raids into England and understand exactly how it was that this occurred. Perhaps the most important thing to start with, though, is that the term Viking is not of a people, but rather of an action. The individuals who would actually go ahead and raid England were the Norse or the Northmen, so other Scandinavian regions, the Danes, and the Jutes. But the initial raids that were being made upon England by the Norse were found primarily on Christian monasteries, as they were oftentimes isolated and had no defenses to them whatsoever. For the Norse raiders, they were oftentimes amazed at just how much wealth were located in these singular locations, and as such, they were easy to attack. More often, the Norse preferred to go for easy raids versus difficult ones, not in order to go ahead and say, hey, I'm cowards, but instead understanding that it's a long sea voyage, and they need to be able to have enough men to get back home. Now, the raids upon the British Isles were so common that in the year 792, King Offa of Mercia would prepare defenses against pagan forces. And on June the 8th, 793, the monastery at Linsafame was sacked, and this would begin a series of continual raids from the Norse, which would spread throughout the British Isles. However, it is at this point, from that initial singular raid that started them all, that the invasion of the British Isles would occur some 70 years later, as in the year 865, the Great Heathen Army would go ahead and attack England. The reason for this is that the Norse had changed their attitude about the British Isles, seeing it as less of a raiding opportunity and more of a colonization opportunity. In 866, the Norse would capture the city of York and, over the span of 10 years, would move south and begin to take over almost the whole of what is now modern-day England. By the year 878, King Alfred of Wessex was driven back to the marshes of Athelney, and it was from here that the English would begin to fight back against the Norse. Alfred would rally the few nobles he had left to his cause and successfully defeat the Norse and their king Guthrum at the Battle of Edington. This particular victory would enable Alfred to be henceforth referred to as Alfred the Great. With the Kingdom of Wessex beginning to push back against the Norse, series of battles would occur between the Anglos and the Saxons, which would eventually go ahead and lead to the year 937, where a combined allied army of English, Scots, Welsh, and Irish would defeat the Norse at the Battle of Brennaborough and end the reign of Norse power in northern England at that time. After almost 40 years of peace, however, the Norse would return in the year 980. Attempting to appease the raiders, though, the English would start paying £10,000 to the Norse. However, it proved to be not enough to stop the raids. With the people demanding a more hostile response, King Ethelred would order all Danes in England to be executed on St. Brice's Day in the year 1002. When the Danes learned of this mass execution, King Sweyn Forkbeard would lead a Danish army and invade England, successfully driving out Ethelred and taking the English throne in the process. His sudden death would lead to a second invasion by the Danes, this time being led by his son Knut, who would become the King of England and Denmark. Following the death of King Knut in the year 1035, the presence of the Norse, Danes, and other groups who were related to the Vikings would begin to diminish within England as more people were intermarrying with those Britons who were already living in the British Isles. In a last gasp of trying to go ahead and preserve the famed Viking culture, England would be invaded in the year 1066 by Harold Hardrada, and he was defeated at Stamford Bridge, ending the Viking Age. And while his invasion is oftentimes forgotten, it was the invasion of a descendant of a different Norse, that of William the Conqueror, that would go ahead and ensure that, at least in some ways, a lasting Viking legacy would occur in England. Now be sure to click like, share, and subscribe for future episodes of Milling Through History. And be sure to leave comments below for future episode ideas. And be sure to take a look at our suggested reading page.